Hi, I'm Gavin,
And I'm Dave.
and you're on the fringe.
Come along with us for a ride on a podcast where we talk about an area or a thing going on in the world that needs more attention, just like you do. Let's go.
On the fringe. Here we go. Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to On the Fringe. This is Gavin, here with my good friend Dave. And today we're talking about a country you probably heard of, but not for this reason. Just in the last couple of days, the president the Prime Minister of Poland, I believe it was the Prime Minister, Donald Tusk, different Donald, he has announced that Poland is looking at the possibility of acquiring their own nuclear weapons. Now, Dave, isn't this part of a larger trend in Poland of sort of trying to level up?
So, according to my research, yes. And Poland is looking to beef up its military capacity. They're looking at doing something similar to Switzerland, where all men 18 plus are going to have military training. It's also
Mhm.
very welcome for women that would like to serve in the Polish military. And the country has doubled their military spending in the last 4 or 5 years. Before, like around 2020, it was about 2% of GDP, which is the NATO requirement. Now it's over 4%. So it's very, very high. And Poland is looking at the recent war in Ukraine as a red alert for the country to be on alert.
Yeah, and they're really a frontline country. I mean, they got the vast majority of Ukrainian refugees. They've been supplying weapons from day one. They've been heavily involved, and they seem very clear. There doesn't seem to be a lot of domestic opposition to this. They seem to be very clear about the direction they need to head in, uh,
Yeah,
regardless.
and they
Yeah,
border
go ahead.
Russia too. I was gonna say, and
Yes.
they border Russia too. There's a small chunk of Russia, Kaliningrad, which is
Obla.
just north of Gdansk.
Uh, they have a close relationship with a current nuclear power. Actually, really a close relationship with three nuclear powers. They get along very well with the UK and the US, but they seem to be working pretty closely with the French. And currently, the French have been pretty magnanimous about spreading the nuclear umbrella. And it seems like that may be a stopgap strategy until they develop their own indigenous weapons. Do you just want to talk to us briefly? I can throw in my 2 cents, but if you could just lead us off on where the Poles are getting most of their weapons from.
Sure. So a lot of their weapons are coming from the States, and also they're getting a lot of weapons from the Koreans as well. So they're two of their big suppliers. They're getting American tanks and Korean tanks, Korean K2 tanks, along with Homar K rockets and K9A1 howitzers as well.
And
So
I
they're
believe
getting a mix.
they're getting a mix. I believe the K2s and the Home RKs, maybe the K9A1s too. Those are actually being built in Poland, but they're being built with Korean assistance. Korea is a very up and coming arms exporter, and Poland's been working with them very closely, really for over a decade at this point. The other thing that I think people might not be aware of is separate from the nuclear weapons. Poland has a pretty new but pretty booming arms industry itself. They're increasingly exporting their own weapons abroad, mostly anti-tank and small arms, but they've invested a lot of money in it, particularly over the last 3 years, and that looks set to continue. Sometimes Polish arms wind up in funny places. I know about a year ago, some some arms that had been ordered by the Rwandan military showed up in the Congo.
Hmm.
Um, they don't. So again, the Polish arms industry is very new. They don't really have end user agreements, so they don't really keep track of where they end up, which they're probably going to move away from. Speaking of moving away, they also look like they're about to pull out of the main convention regulating the use of landmines in conflicts, which a lot of people are not super happy about, but they're very clear that this is something they can't actually abide by if they are invaded. So they're pulling out of, I think, the main treaty regulating landmine use and the main treaty regulating cluster munition use. So
Hmm.
that these announcements involving military reform, nuclear weapons, and landmines and cluster munitions, I mean, that's all happened basically within the space of a week.
Yeah, this is escalating very, very quickly.
Yeah.
And I think Poland is looking at this and they're trying to hedge their bets where, okay, let's say we do have peace between Ukraine and Russia. How long is this actually going to last?
Yep.
And I think the Poles are looking at this and going, this is not going to last. We need to be prepared for anything. And I mean, in the last 2 years, the U.S. Army has built a garrison in Poland as well. So they're
Mm.
doing everything they can to deter Russian aggression in Eastern Europe. And this is just another, I think, step the Poles are trying to take to protect their country from Russia.
Yeah, I mean, and historically, this is a country that has very strong feelings about foreign domination of any kind, but I think at this point, particularly Russian. They are very clear about what they don't want, and I think you're absolutely right. I mean, you have to hedge your bets any way you can, and that's what they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
I'm going to
also,
say,
go ahead.
real quick, Gavin, didn't Ukraine have nukes at one time and they got rid of them?
Oh my God, Dave, you're reading my mind. You're darn right they did.
So why
When
did
did
they
they
do
get rid
that?
of them, Dave?
It was, I believe, 1994. But I mean, why would they do that if they inherited a bunch of the Soviet Union's nuclear stockpile? I mean, Kazakhstan did the same thing too. But why would the Ukrainians get rid of their nuclear weapons?
So, three countries gave up nuclear weapons in the 90s. One of them is South Africa. We'll talk about that later. Ukraine and Kazakhstan inherited nuclear stockpiles from the USSR, along with the Federal Republic of Russia. Um, I think people now, definitely not in the former Soviet Union, but definitely outside of it, people tend to forget how chaotic the breakup of the USSR was. So from 1991, I'd say really to about 2001, things were pretty chaotic, and I'm being charitable. Um, Ukraine and Kazakhstan were both relatively unsure of the amount of international recognition they were going to get as newly independent countries. And basically, they traded having nuclear weapons for international recognition from the US, Russia, and the UK. But I mean, Russia's really the important actor here. They not only recognized the borders, they also all gave security guarantees. Um,
That's
this
worth a lot.
obvi- yeah, which I mean, now you look at it and you go, well, gee, that really worked out. Um, but at the time, it was also like they had the warheads, but they didn't really have the infrastructure to do much with them. And they had, I would say Ukraine definitely, but Kazakhstan as well. They just had other concerns in the 90s. Their economies were in free fall. They were kind of, I mean, states where most of the people living in it really weren't sure how they fit in. There was a lot of confusion about national identity. There were a lot of people who were outside of nuclear weapons very heavily armed and had conflicting views about what the state was going to look like. They just kind of didn't want to deal with this, and they were like, we can use this to buy security at least for a little bit, which, to be fair to them, it did.
Hmm. It did for a time.
For a time.
And going
Now, so
forward,
much.
going forward, we will see if this actually does quiet down over in Ukraine and Russia, whether there is some sort of a lasting peace between Russia, Ukraine, and whatever other countries actually help create and I guess implement this deal. But we're just gonna have to sit back and wait for that to unfold. And with that,
And with that, yeah, I mean, I think we're still here. We're still waiting. Where, Dave?
we're on the fringe and we're excited to have you join us. Thank you very much for listening. Please like, comment, and subscribe if you haven't done so. And if you know of somebody that you don't like or know of 10 people that you don't like, send them a link with this and go, hey, this is a really, really, really good podcast that you should listen to. And I love you to bits. And that's why you should check this out. And we would appreciate it. Thank you guys very much again. Take care and all the best.